Hi, my name is Stephanie Reyes. I'm calling because after I gave birth to my baby girl, the hospital tested her for marijuana and the results were positive, and now ACS is trying to take my baby from me.
Cannabis is interesting. There's been news stories for the last 5-10 years about professional women who now are setting up cannabis businesses and things like this. But when you look at policies related to pregnant people who use drugs, those policies have actually gotten more punitive in the last decade. And we police and surveil and control the bodies of pregnant people more than almost anyone else, in particular poor, non-white, pregnant people.
My daughter was born on February 17th. Duchess was an amazing pregnancy because she's the first girl. The doctor noticed she had spit up some brown substance, so immediately they took her. After that, this is when I noticed the urinal casing on her that was stuck to her vaginal area. I asked the nurse, I said, "Nurse, what is this on her? Because I want to change her pamper." She's like, "Oh no, this needs to stay on there. We need to collect some urine." So I was like, "Okay." I said, "Is there a reason why that you need to collect some urine?" So she's like, "We're going to do a drug test."
My daughter was born in the Bronx. She was born September 14th, 2017. The first moment I held her, I was overly excited that she was alive. I felt like I was the best mom in the world. They tested me first, and because I was tested positive, they had to test the baby. They put a bag in her pamper and had her urinate into the bag and tested her urine, and she came up positive. And I didn't know about that until after they told me.
There are two types of drug tests. There's what we call a point-of-care drug test, which is usually what's performed in the hospital. We get a result within minutes, and the result is binary, plus or minus. And then there's what we call definitive tests, which are send-out tests to a laboratory. They can take a week to get the results back, and you get a quantitative value. I've reviewed 50 different child welfare related cases, most to cannabis. I've yet to review a medical record in which definitive testing was performed.
Today we are holding a hearing to address the impact of marijuana policies on child welfare.
So who does this happen to? Just like the racial disparities in stop and frisk practices, the test and report approach taken by hospitals disparately affects mothers and newborns of color. One study showed that African American women are actually 10 times more likely to be tested. And a survey done of New York City hospitals exposed what we suspect, that public hospitals serving poor women routinely test, while private hospitals in upscale neighborhoods do not.
It's only specific people for whom using marijuana while also being a parent is deemed not appropriate, and that is poor Black and brown people. And often as public defenders in the Bronx, in Bronx Family Court, we see petitions, family court petitions, that only read a parent uses XYZ substance, a parent uses marijuana. No connection whatsoever to the child, yet they're hauled into court and their life is regulated.
Current state law is pretty clear that substance use alone is not a cause for indicating a neglect case, and that a child's physical, mental, or emotional condition must also be impaired or in imminent danger of becoming impaired due to a parent or guardian's failure to provide minimum care due to the quote-unquote misusing of a drug.
At the root or the base of child welfare is concern to ensure the safety of children. We have 40-some years prospective data on cannabis and birth outcomes. When people say we just don't know what the consequences of using cannabis in pregnancy are, that's false. In terms of developmental outcomes, the results are at best subtle to non-present.
The incredible harm to the mother and the child of separation, especially at birth during that critical stage of attachment. Forget the research, it is just a visceral feeling. Mothers who lose their children are more likely to experience postpartum depression. They are more likely to commit suicide. They are more likely to be isolated from their social networks.
I was very, very depressed because I felt like I had a microscope over me. I was being dragged into court every other month, every other week. I felt like I wasn't a good enough mom.
Many of the cases that we see as public defenders that come through court are allegations of neglect that are based on a parent not having resources, not having access to childcare, not having access to adequate housing. The child welfare system becomes a site of sort of regulating that poverty.
In the interim, I agreed to services. They would say, go to this place, and then switch up at the last minute. And at first they wanted me to do a drug test, then they wanted me to do a drug treatment program. I'm like, well, I'm not on drugs. But then we had this lady come, and she asked us to lift up our shirts, and she even would wake Duchess out of her naps to open up her diaper and pull up her onesie. I'm like, but she's sleeping. She's like, I need to see the baby.
If we can conceive of all the harm that results from centuries of racial oppression and centuries of unaddressed poverty, if we can conceive of all that harm as the parent's fault, then those problems are no longer structural and they no longer require a widespread societal or government response.
To the system, they think that they're helping the child, but you're not helping the child if you're not helping the mother, because the mother is the one that has to raise that child. Until I get them completely out of my life, life is pretty much the same. I'm still on a certain amount of stress level when it comes to mothering her. Like, nervous, even if she falls, oh God, because I don't want them to come and see her and, oh, what's that? Let's go ACS.
I'm a mother and I'm a woman, and I know that emotions are gentle. And for someone not to care about your emotions when you're at the most vulnerable state, and them taking that and using that against me. So I don't think that's right.
So we're here hoping for more ACS accountability and to sort of shrink the harm that ACS can have in a family's life.
What I'm hoping will come out of the accountability package is change. ACS needs to be accountable. They are not accountable, and they utilize a lot of backdoor policies to accomplish the goal that they want.
So now I have an agency telling me that I can't maintain and take care of daughters, that because I come from low-income areas that I'm not going to be able to provide for them and do the things that need to be done.